Forget walking for a moment and allow that idea to settle, because walking has become almost sacred in modern health culture, praised as the universal solution, gentle, accessible, and comforting. Yet comfort is not what muscle tissue understands as a signal for survival. Muscle responds to challenge, to load, to the clear message that it is still required for daily life. And when that message becomes faint, the body adapts in a quiet but serious way by reducing what it no longer believes it needs. Sarcopenia does not arrive suddenly like an injury or illness. It creeps in slowly, year after year, as muscle fibers shrink, motor units disconnect, and strength fades without drama, often unnoticed until simple tasks feel heavier than they should. Walking, while valuable for circulation, mood, and joint movement, rarely creates enough mechanical tension to stop this process, especially as the body becomes efficient at it, turning each step into a low-effort habit rather than a meaningful stimulus. The human body is deeply economical, always asking how much strength is truly necessary. And if the answer appears to be very little, muscle tissue is gradually withdrawn like an unused resource. This is not failure. It is biology responding logically to the signals it receives. Muscle cells rely on stress to activate protein synthesis, to maintain the size and integrity of fibers. And without that stress, the internal machinery slows down, hormonal signals weaken, and the balance between breakdown and repair quietly shifts in the wrong direction. What makes this especially important is that muscle is not only about movement. It is a metabolic organ, influencing blood sugar control, inflammation, bone health, and even brain function, meaning its loss affects the whole system rather than a single ability. When we rely only on walking, we often confuse motion with stimulus, assuming that being active automatically means being protected, but the body distinguishes clearly between the two. Motion keeps us mobile, stimulus keeps us strong. Sarcopenia thrives in the space where movement exists without resistance, where the muscles are active but never challenged enough to grow or even maintain themselves. This is why people can walk daily for years and still experience declining strength, balance, and confidence, wondering why effort no longer translates into resilience. The deeper truth is that aging muscles require clearer instructions, stronger signals that say you're still needed, still functional, still essential for independence. Forgetting walking is not a rejection of it, but an invitation to rethink what the body truly asks for when it comes to preserving strength, an invitation to move from passive activity toward intentional resistance, where each effort becomes a message written directly into the biology of muscle that strength is still part of life and not something to be gently walked away from. The first exercise seems almost too ordinary to be powerful, sitting down and standing up from a chair. Yet within this simple action lies one of the most meaningful strength signals the aging body can receive. When you lower yourself slowly and rise with control, the largest muscle groups of the body come alive in a coordinated effort, the quadriceps managing knee extension, the gluteal muscles driving the hips forward, and the core stabilizing the spine, all under the guidance of the nervous system. This movement mirrors the demands of real life more closely than many formal exercises, because standing up is not an abstract task, it is independence made visible. From a biological perspective, this controlled transition between sitting and standing creates mechanical tension within muscle fibers, and that tension is the language muscle cells understand best. It activates intracellular pathways responsible for protein synthesis, reminding the muscle that it must maintain its size and strength to meet daily demands. Unlike repetitive walking, which quickly becomes metabolically efficient, this movement resists efficiency by demanding force production against gravity every single time. What matters is not speed, but intention, the slow descent that challenges eccentric control and the steady rise that recruits high-threshold motor units, often lost first with aging. These motor units are essential for strength, balance, and quick corrective movements, and without regular activation they disconnect, leaving the muscle weaker even if it still appears active. As this exercise is repeated, something deeper occurs beyond the muscle fibers themselves. The brain sharpens its map of the body, improving neuromuscular coordination and timing, which directly influences balance and fall prevention. The body learns once again how to generate force smoothly and confidently, reinforcing a sense of trust between mind and movement. Metabolically, the engagement of large muscle groups increases glucose uptake, improves insulin sensitivity, and supports hormonal signals that favor muscle preservation rather than breakdown. This is especially important because muscle loss is not only about strength, but about how the body manages energy, inflammation, and recovery. What makes this exercise quietly profound is its accessibility, requiring no equipment, no special environment, only awareness and consistency. Each repetition becomes a negotiation with gravity, a reminder to the body that it still needs power to function well. Over time, the chair becomes more than a place of rest. It becomes a training tool that speaks directly to the biology of aging, reinforcing strength through relevance rather than force, teaching the body that standing up is not just movement, but a declaration that muscle still has a role to play in daily life. The second exercise unfolds in near silence, pushing gently but deliberately against the ground or a wall, using nothing more than body weight and attention. Yet this quiet resistance speaks clearly to the muscles and the nervous system alike. When the hands press into a wall or the arms support the body against the floor, muscles of the chest, shoulders, arms, and core awaken together, forming a chain of effort rather than isolated work. This kind of resistance does not rely on external weight, but on internal coordination, where force is created by intention and sustained through controlled tension. From a scientific perspective, muscles do not recognize machines or equipment. They recognize load, and load is simply resistance applied over time. Holding the body steady against gravity or an immovable surface increases time under tension, one of the most reliable triggers for maintaining and rebuilding muscle fibers as we age. This sustained tension encourages the recruitment of muscle fibers that are often neglected in daily life, especially those responsible for posture, stability, and controlled strength. As the arms push, the core reflexively tightens to protect the spine, and this integration reinforces the communication pathways between the brain and body that gradually weaken without challenge. These neural connections are essential because strength is not merely the size of a muscle, but the brain's ability to activate it fully and efficiently. With repeated practice, the nervous system becomes more confident, reducing unnecessary co-contraction and allowing smoother, more powerful movement. On a cellular level, this form of resistance stimulates metabolic activity within muscle tissue, improving mitochondrial efficiency and supporting better energy production, which is crucial for aging cells that naturally become less resilient. It also sends signals that influence hormonal balance, subtly favoring anabolic processes that help preserve muscle mass over time. Beyond physiology, there is a psychological component that should not be overlooked. Pressing against resistance builds a sense of agency, the feeling that the body can still generate force and respond predictably to effort. This confidence translates into daily life, making movements like lifting, reaching, or stabilizing oneself feel less uncertain. The simplicity of the exercise removes barriers, making consistency more likely. And consistency is what transforms small stresses into meaningful adaptation. Each controlled push becomes a message written into the body's biology, reinforcing the idea that strength is still expected and still useful. In this way, resistance against a wall or the floor becomes more than an exercise. It becomes a quiet dialogue between intention and tissue, reminding the body that even without complexity or noise, purposeful tension can preserve strength, coordination, and the subtle resilience that defines physical independence. What gives these movements their real depth is not how simple they appear, but how precisely they align with the way the human body adapts to stress over time. Biology is shaped by challenge, not by comfort, and these exercises create short, controlled moments of difficulty that the body interprets as a reason to rebuild rather than retreat. Each repetition introduces a mild stressor that activates repair mechanisms at the cellular level, encouraging muscle fibers to maintain their size and strength instead of shrinking through disuse. This process also improves the sensitivity of muscle tissue to insulin, allowing glucose to move more efficiently from the bloodstream into the cells, which supports stable energy levels and reduces metabolic strain. At the same time, resistance-based movement influences hormonal signaling, nudging the balance toward anabolic processes that help counter age-related muscle breakdown. Beneath these biochemical effects lies the often overlooked role of mitochondria, the energy-producing structures within cells that respond positively to mechanical load. When muscles are challenged, mitochondrial activity increases, improving endurance and resilience while reducing fatigue during everyday tasks. These adaptations are not dramatic or immediate, but they accumulate quietly, reinforcing the body's ability to recover and respond. Balance also improves as a natural consequence, because controlled resistance trains the nervous system to coordinate multiple muscle groups simultaneously, sharpening reflexes and improving postural awareness. This coordination is essential for preventing falls, one of the most serious risks associated with muscle loss and aging. What makes this approach especially meaningful is its accessibility, removing the intimidation often associated with strength training while preserving its essential biological impact. There is no reliance on complex routines or external validation, only the repeated experience of effort followed by adaptation. Over time, the body begins to trust itself again, rediscovering a sense of stability that extends beyond physical movement into emotional confidence. Strength becomes less about appearance or performance and more about capacity, the ability to meet the demands of life without hesitation. These exercises quietly support bone density through the mechanical forces they generate, reinforcing the skeletal system alongside muscle tissue and contributing to long-term structural health. In this way, resistance-based movement acts as a unifying signal, coordinating improvements across multiple systems rather than targeting a single outcome. The body does not compartmentalize health, and neither should our approach to movement. Each controlled effort becomes a reminder that aging is not merely a process of decline, but a continuous negotiation between stress and adaptation, where even small, intentional challenges can preserve function, confidence, and the deeply human experience of feeling capable within one's own body. Practicing these exercises at home carries a meaning that reaches beyond muscle fibers and movement patterns, because it represents a conscious choice to remain engaged with the body rather than drifting into passive decline. Aging often brings an unspoken narrative that strength is something left behind, a youthful trait replaced by caution and limitation, yet biology does not fully agree with that story. The body continues to adapt for as long as it is alive, responding not to age itself but to the signals it receives each day. When resistance is introduced, even gently, the body interprets it as relevance, as proof that strength still serves a purpose. Each repetition becomes a small but deliberate act of participation in this adaptive process, a reminder that physical capacity is shaped by behavior rather than by the calendar alone. There is something deeply human in this interaction, the recognition that effort is a form of communication, telling the body that it is still trusted to carry weight, to stabilize itself, to push back against gravity. Over time, this trust reshapes self-perception, replacing fear of fragility with quiet confidence. From a scientific perspective, consistency matters more than intensity, because repeated signals reinforce neural pathways, sustain muscle protein turnover, and preserve the integrity of connective tissue. These adaptations unfold gradually, often unnoticed, until one day daily movements feel smoother, steadier, and less draining. The home environment itself becomes part of the process, removing external pressure and allowing movement to integrate naturally into life rather than existing as a separate obligation. This familiarity reduces stress, and lower stress supports recovery, hormonal balance, and overall resilience. There's also a psychological benefit in choosing to move with intention because it restores a sense of agency over the aging process. Rather than viewing physical decline as inevitable, the individual becomes an active participant, shaping outcomes through small, repeatable actions. This shift in mindset influences behavior in subtle ways, encouraging better posture, more awareness, and greater respect for the body signals. Compassion plays an important role here because the goal is not to punish the body into strength, but to invite it gently back into capability. Resistance becomes a form of care rather than confrontation. In this context, sarcopenia is no longer an abstract medical term, but a process that can be influenced, slowed, and in some cases partially reversed through mindful effort. Each session becomes a quiet conversation between intention and tissue, where the body responds not with words but with adaptation. Strength regained in this way is not explosive or dramatic, but stable, reliable, and deeply reassuring. It supports independence, dignity, and the simple freedom to move through the world without hesitation. In choosing these movements, the individual affirms that aging is not a withdrawal from life, but an ongoing dialogue with it, where strength remains relevant, effort remains meaningful, and the body continues to listen as long as it is spoken to with patience and purpose.